I'm Juliette Bryant, and this is my new series on healing plants.
Oh yeah, the healing power plants, oh yeah. The healing power plants,
Another one of my
oh
personal
yeah.
favourites, reishi mushrooms.
The healing power plants, oh yeah. With Juliette.
So I'm here with a really good friend, Tannine Montgomery, who has been on and is still on a really incredible journey, and the transformation that her daughter has undergone with one incredible plant has been huge. So Tannine, tell me about what's going on with Indy.
So Indy, as you know, she was suffering a lot. We didn't really go out much because her seizures just completely controlled her life, and the medication that she was using, that also controlled her life because it didn't help, and it didn't work for her, and it made her sick. So we took a massive step to start treating Indy with pure CBD oil, and we started doing that fairly successfully in the UK. But there is no regulated oil here. There's no market. So we have CBD off the shelf, but the market isn't as good a quality. So we went to Holland, and we used medical cannabis that was prescribed to Indy, and well, the transformation for Indy is huge, and for us as a family, her ability to run, she never ran. So just through having cannabis, within 5 days she ran, which was something we'd never seen before. So totally, just amazing. But you keep doubting yourself because you're not sure. And then 10 days after her taking it, she ran to her brother and gave him a cuddle and started to instigate a game, which she had never ever done before, and he was 9 months old, so that was again amazing. We watched our child come back to life with cannabis slowly over time, so just totally changed her lives. Yeah.
It's incredible because I see Indy coming to playgroup and have noticed the changes as well, and how much more she interacts with people and doing things, and how much more relaxed you are around her. Because at the beginning, when I first met you, you were kind of on her
Very
constantly,
nervous, yeah.
in case she would fall over because her balance was wobbly.
Yeah.
And now you're so much more relaxed.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it is a full-time job looking after a disabled child, but when you're not constantly fearful of her dropping and having a seizure and hurting herself, it's an amazing feeling to have the ability for your daughter to be able to play in a sandpit, or just play in the paddling pool, and you can pop inside quickly because you have the faith in cannabis, and that cannabis and importantly the CBD and the THC is saving her life, and it's keeping her happy daily.
So when it comes to cannabis and seeing the changes that she's undergone, you said obviously you're doing CBD and THC. What have you noticed is the difference with adding the THC into the mix?
So firstly, I'd like to say with medical cannabis, people talk a lot about medical cannabis, but we must be clear that we need whole plant cannabis. It must be whole plant cannabis, not isolated compounds, because that isn't a synergetic effect. That isn't what these children need. Our bodies, as you know, are deficient in cannabis because we don't use it. So for somebody like Indy, the entourage effect is huge because all of the problems she suffers, so there wasn't just seizures, we had bouts of insomnia for 36 hours. We had panic attacks daily for 4 hours sometimes, where our heart rate would be like 190. I now know that I can look at my cabinet and I can go, okay, CBD, we need some CBD. We can calm the situation down with CBD, and it's non-toxic. And for a mother of a child with a severe seizure disorder, that is a relief in itself. At 3 o'clock in the morning, when you have a child having a panic attack and you have nothing to give, it's a frightening place to be. But now it's not a frightening place to be. It's about learning about the cannabis plant, understanding what each compound does. So the panic attacks have gone, and that hasn't happened because of CBD, but that's happened because of CBN and CBG and the other compounds in cannabis. So we must use whole plant cannabis, and that obviously includes THC as well. For these children, it works fairly well in low forms, but it is part of the medicine. It stops cluster seizures, it stops prolonged seizures. There is no need for any other medication with somebody like Indy at the moment. We haven't used anything for over a year. She hasn't gone to hospital, she hasn't been had an ambulance out, she hasn't had a panic attack for a year.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the change, that was horrific watching my child panic.
So for people who don't necessarily understand all of that, what's going on in the body, and this is just my take, obviously you know a little bit more about it than me, but in cannabis there are over 120 cannabinoids. Now cannabinoids are the things like CBD, like THC, these are cannabinoids. There are terpenes in there as well, and these all interact together to form the effect on the body. Now how these work is we have something called an endocannabinoid system in our body, and guess what, and I think this is amazing, breast milk is the richest source of endocannabinoids in anything. So when you start off life with this new baby and you put them to your boob and they start feeding, they're getting all these cannabinoids and they're feeding this endocannabinoid system. And to me, the way I like to view it, it's like the foundations of a house.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of underpinning the nervous system, it's underpinning the immune system, it's underpinning everything. So if that foundation isn't very strong for whatever reason, we need to add those cannabinoids back in. Now obviously cannabis is one source of them, as I said, breast milk is another. Cacao's got cannabinoids in, echinacea's got cannabinoids in. So there are other places we can go, but obviously cannabis is one of the richest sources.
Yeah.
With the most collection of them. So by giving cannabis to people with anxiety, with depression, with pain, with arthritis, with epilepsy, with cancer, with multiple sclerosis, with Parkinson's, the list goes on, it's feeding the foundations of the house to help support the body to be strong.
Well, the way I see it as well is exactly like that. You know, we have an endocannabinoid system. If we don't feed it, it lacks. If we need vitamin C, we get vitamin C. You know, it seems that we have this built-up fear of cannabis that is completely unnecessary. All we're simply doing is replacing indigenous cannabinoids within our body with phytocannabinoids. That's all we're doing, and we do that with plants every day, every single day. And the shocking thing for me is when we worked together and we spoke to people about the CBD, and people frightened to give CBD to their children. People, oh, this is not for children. It's absolutely for children. This is about children, this is about parents, this is about the whole perception of it needs to change so that people use it effectively.
I think the thing is, people are very scared that they're going to make their child stoned. You know, they think that they're going to give CBD to their child, and their child's going to be laying there monged out, going, "I'm hungry, give me food, I've got the munchies." You know, and this is the perception that has been drilled out since the 20s, when it was suddenly like cannabis turned into a marijuana, and it was this big evil thing.
Street cannabis is very different to the cannabis that was grown medicinally in gardens for many reasons. For balms, we have receptors in our skin, so you know, our bodies are designed to use this as they are everything else. So.
And you're making an amazing balm, aren't you?
I'm trying,
which is really exciting. And with Tannine's help, I created a CBD hot chocolate mix, which is really good for children to have as well. Really easy because it's in the form of a lovely hot chocolate drink, or cold chocolate drink. You can have it hot or cold. And what's been really exciting with that is that so many people have been able to go, it's taken the fear out of it, because they go, oh, I can give my child a hot chocolate, and that's got a dosage of CBD that's going to help support them, but they're not going to get stoned. So it's taking that, it's demystifying, isn't it? That's what this is all about, demystifying everyone to know that this is a plant and this is medicine.
It's very safe, very safe plant to use. I think the levels of toxicity, you know, they're so high, it's impossible to reach toxicity with cannabis. You'd recreationally, you'd have to smoke a lot of cannabis to be very unwell. It is fairly safe, and when you're looking at it from a really medicinal point of view in children with epilepsy or suffering severe anxiety, ADHD, then children are being given drugs anyway that sedate them, that aren't good for the immune system. If we can use cannabis in replacement of some or all of these drugs, it means that we are supporting their system. Like Indy hasn't had a cold for like a year. Amazing. Like it helps with so many things. You know, she has hypermobility, she used to fall all the time, so her joints are quite inflamed, and it's one of the best anti-inflammatories, you know. So from a whole perspective, Indy has only used cannabis for a year, and she has a severe epileptic condition. So from my perspective, cannabis works, and it works really, really well, and it's really, really safe in comparison to what we have medicinally.
And I think some of the pharmaceuticals, we don't know what the long-term effect is going to be either with them, the damage that these synthetic substances can do potentially to the body, as opposed to using something natural. And what you said before about the not having the isolates, I think that's a really important thing. It's, you know, it applies to so many different food things like turmeric, all these different things. When we take out and extract things and start going, oh, turmeric, curcumin's the active component, we'll take that out because that's got anti-cancerous properties. But actually, nature is so clever.
It's intentional.
Exactly. It designs things with all these other bits in it because that's how your body best absorbs it.
Absolutely.
And so with the cannabis, you've not just got the CBD or the THC, you've got this whole variety of the terpenes and everything else, and the fat in there to help your body absorb it as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's a really, really all-round amazing product. I mean, my 2-year-old son, I put the balms on him if he hurts himself, and he's more than happy, goes off running around the garden. And, you know, I think that actually with our children, we need to normalise this so that when they are older, that they normalise cannabis and people don't suffer from not being able to use it, like stigmatisation of things like fibromyalgia or MS, where people have to source their own cannabis to make themselves well, and it's quite difficult. So.
It is. I mean, my mum had multiple sclerosis. In fact, today is her birthday. She would have been 69. But she used cannabis really effectively. She was prescribed it in the States. She was a cannabis that she smoked, and it stopped her spasms. It was such a difference. Her eyes wouldn't spasm, her hands wouldn't spasm, so she could actually, when she'd smoked some, she could actually not shake, so she could pick up her own cup of tea instead of someone having to feed her. And that's a massive thing.
It's amazing. It's like having your life back.
Yeah.
To be able to do these things for yourself. And I have witnessed things very similar myself with people that use cannabis. And how many years ago was that, Juliette, in
over 25, 30 years ago.
So 25,
I'm giving away my age a bit.
30 years ago, we had access to medicinal cannabis in America. And we're still sitting here trying to destigmatise and waiting for that access. Yeah. So I think that that's also really important, that across the world, they are using this product in variants of different ways, within drinks, within food products, and within medicinal reasons. So.
Yeah, so we need to start moving this along and changing the way we're viewing plants. And that's what this series is all about, how we can use healing plants to change our lives and the lives of those around us. How we can turn to nature for solutions as opposed to anything else. I've made you some cake.
Lovely.
So, talking of plants and changing our lives, cheers.